Hello and welcome to another episode of the Auto Riff. This episode is on the SUV that helped turn Nissan around in the late 90s, the Xterra. But rather than typical history episode, I reached out to former president of Nissan Design America, Tom Semple, who was one of the lead designers of the Xterra. We talked about the Xterra coming to fruition, then we just started talking about car design. I felt like a bit of a fanboy talking to Tom since he got to live out my childhood dream. This is a super exciting interview and I hope you enjoy it. What was the design process like? And that doesn't mean just necessarily for the Xterra, but like in general. Like, so my question was, does someone come up with the idea of like the class that Nissan wanted to get into, or do you just have designers sketching stuff and someone picks it?
No. We had an assignment to use the truck.
The Frontier, okay.
Our truck, which is Frontier, which is I believe the only truck we had at the time. I'm not good with years. I'm really not. I've been gone a long time too, but we were to use the truck without moving the gas tank.
Okay.
Which meant that the rear seat had to be higher, which accounts for that bump in the roof.
Okay, yeah.
But one of our designers, Robert Bauer, came up with that roof rack, made it look really cool.
Yeah.
So it's been said that it's kind of a car resting below a roof rack.
Right. Well, so when you had mentioned in the email about the roof rack kind of tying it together, I completely agree, because when I kind of tried to visualize that roof rack not being there, I could see the bump you're talking about, and like, okay, yeah, that would have looked odd without that.
Yeah. In fact, the sketch I did actually was for the body side, and not for that hump on the roof. I didn't like the hump on the roof, but I didn't want to make it any taller than it had to be over the passenger, because we had to carry over the windshield, the cowl, everything.
Right.
From the truck. The only thing we did with the truck is we shortened the frame a little bit, I think, in fact. Yeah.
So okay, so it was actually so somebody like higher up, I assume, then decided on the Frontier as being the base for an SUV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they did, because we wanted something that was completely different than the Pathfinder, and less expensive. Would have the bona fides of a truck.
Right. So does it sitting on, from a design perspective, because you've designed a lot of vehicles, obviously, is it easier to design a vehicle having already had the frame like handed to you, or does that make it harder? Because like, to me, like you said, with the gas tank can't be moved, right? To me, that would make it harder instead of having kind of a clean slate.
It doesn't make it any harder. It's just part of can't be changed.
Right.
Anyway, so if it can be changed, the hood passing over the engine without touching anything, up with something that works. And thank God for Robert Bauer that he came up with the roof rack. But the body side was interesting in that we had to carry over the front fender.
Okay.
From the truck at first. But we could do anything with the rear quarter. So on one side of the vehicle, we did it matching the rear quarter of the truck, the arch and stuff like that, because we had to carry over that fender. So we put a carryover fender on one side, and then I did a sketch showing what it looked like, with a built-in black part at the bottom, acting as a mud protector and that kind of thing. And we just thought it was a better design. And when my boss, Jerry Hirschberg, came back, I don't know if he was in Japan or on vacation, he really liked it. So we invited people in from corporate in the United States and from Japan, and showed them the two sides, and they definitely liked the new one. So they sprung for a new rear quarter panel.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. They sprung for a new front fender.
Like in the budget, you mean?
Pardon me?
Like in the budget, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they wanted to keep the budget. Of course, they would want to keep the budget, you know, within certain parameters. But, you know, the issue is this is that it really needed to separate itself from the truck more than, I think, more than what the side with the truck fender on it did. So,
right. Yeah.
So we changed the body side really quite extensively while holding the door, sheet metal.
Okay.
That's the same door that's on the truck.
Okay.
Same hood, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm.
See, like, yeah, because I didn't know. Like, I've known a couple of people that owned Xterras, and I didn't know until I started actually researching it that it was based on the Frontier. I thought it was just kind of its own chassis. So that's interesting that they kind of come to you and say that, like, hey, you need to keep this part from the truck, and then here you can do whatever you want, basically, right?
Well, basically, yeah. Of course, they had to, you know, the boss in Japan had to okay the design, but there was really no problem with that. He would, you know, like any designer, just as soon spend a little bit more money and have something new.
Yeah.
Because the competition in that quarter is pretty stiff. So
right. Do you remember what market they were going after with the Xterra? Like, because to me, it's almost like Nissan's Jeep, kind of. Like
they're going after mountain climbers. They're going after people with kayaks and things like that.
Okay, so just like active lifestyle type vehicle, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lifestyle vehicle. In fact, that little bump on the back, my boss Jerry Hirschberg came up with that, and we had all kinds of sketches about what you could put inside, like from a first aid kit to a little portable shower or something like that if you were surfing, you know, filled with cold water if you were somewhere where they didn't have a shower. We had quite a few sketches done on what could be done with that, but unfortunately, they didn't have the money for that on the interior.
Okay. So the bump is just there in case somebody else wants to convert it into something, basically? Because that actually carried over to the second gen, right?
I don't know if anybody has done that or not, but they could.
Right.
They could. I forget what the inside of it looks like. I sure like to have one, though. By golly.
Yeah, you said your wife had one of the first ones, right?
Yeah, she had one of the first ones.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So my first experience with the Xterra was actually my neighbor always leased cars. And the Xterra was the first time she ever actually full out bought one. And she had it for as long as I lived there. And I remember the first time I saw it thinking that is I was young at the time, but I was like, that is a very cool looking SUV. And it's very rugged. And even to this day, I think the original design still holds up. Like, it doesn't look 90s. It doesn't look, you know, it looks like it would still work today.
Yeah, I think so too, and that's why I'd like to have one. Unfortunately, I don't have room in my garage for another car. So,
what's the coolest car you have in there now?
Pardon me?
What's the coolest car you have in your garage?
I got 3 cars in there. I got a 4-car garage, but it's kind of turned into my shop.
Right.
So, yeah.
Was there any design elements that you wanted to carry over to the production vehicle that never did? That you remember, anyways?
No, I think the biggest hurdle we had was tying that roof bump into something that looked cool, and you know, so it was easy to get in and out of the back. You sat in a comfortable way. You had lots of headroom. In fact, you were slightly higher. You could actually see you could see out better.
Right.
So
we have my wife and I have a Nissan Rogue, and it has it's a I forgot what they
Oh,
call it, like
yeah.
stadium style rear seats or something, where they sit up higher, and it
Oh, I
actually
don't know.
supposed to help with car sickness if you're sitting in the back.
Yeah, it would.
So
Yeah, I
you you
remember.
you
I
might have just
remember.
been ahead of your time on that.
I don't know. I do remember times going. Uh, I live in Oregon, and my dad didn't get many vacation days per year, so we used to go over to the coast
Hmm.
and rent a big cabin and all that. And I remember getting seasick every time going over there.
Right.
So they put me in the front seat, and as long as I watched the road, I was okay. So yeah, it would help in that regard.
Uh,
Um,
no, that's yeah.
but
I've
it also lets the rear passengers, I think, uh, you know, be a part of the experience a little bit more. Because our idea was that this thing was going to not only be used, for freeway travel, but it's definitely uh, an off-road vehicle.
right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I have one more question, and then I can let you go because I know you're busy and your dog wants your attention. Uh,
that's okay.
so you mentioned like how many different people were kind of inputting different design ideas on this project, right? Like somebody
Hmm.
was doing the roof, and somebody did the backpack idea. You did the side. Is it hard to
Yeah.
collaborate with that many people on trying to make a single design, or like how do you as a group decide which ideas stay and which ones don't make it? Is it the head designer? Like I don't. Were you were the head designer basically?
Yeah,
So you more or
on
less
that one.
stamp approval on this and that, or whatever, or how does that
Well,
work?
actually who makes the decisions? The final decision is made in Japan. But when we take our models outside, we usually started with quarter scale models,
Hmm.
fairly good size models, and they're all to spec. They all meet, you know, what they need to meet or what you're proposing for it to do. So you take them outside, you look at them. Everyone's invited. People from the office, everybody, and the input is wanted. It's needed. We feel, and so everybody has a chance to say what they feel. Now, this has caused some problems with some newer designers in that their model may have, because Jerry used to like to vote, which I never did. But anyway, he would have a vote. Raise your hands if you like this one or that one.
Right.
And then that gave the impression to the younger designers that his design was the one that was going to be picked. But that wasn't the case. It's up to the director of design to pick the design.
Okay.
First of all, it's up to the chief designer. Now they've changed their system from a studio system to a project system, as I understand it now. So the fact is, people could be chosen for different projects. There's probably a minimum of 3 to 4 people working on it
At any given time.
at
Okay.
any given time, and then other designers are more than welcome to put their sketches up on the wall. And if there's one that blows us away, we'll put it on the model.
Right.
And we do the same thing with the full-size models. We take them out, invite everybody out, get the input, take it back in from what we see, the managers, and then we'll make adjustments. And it's a constant state of trying to make it look like it fits the purpose it's being made for. And sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes it's easy.
Right.
But
Okay.
you're right. The one thing we tried to do is make fairly simple, straightforward designs that had character.
Yeah.
That was what we wanted.
Now,
The fact that it would have to carry over a specific look, when I was there, really hadn't come into existence. It was being toyed with, but
okay.
the front end has to look like
You mean like
this,
as
and
far as
some of the
like design
cars.
language goes, like like all Nissans have a certain
Yeah,
front
design
end,
language.
right? Back then
Yeah,
wasn't really so
and
much a thing.
I was hated that because that was a limiting factor to me,
Yes. Yep. No, I agree. It is,
especially with Nissan. You know, we were struggling.
yeah. The Xterra
'Cause
kind of helped the turnaround, right?
well, I think so. It gave us a shot at doing something really authentic. Now, everything we tried to do, it seemed like, you know, with the Z and things like that, they just kept getting more and more expensive. So that the original idea of the 240 was lost, and we didn't want that at all with this. So we were kind of eager for the challenge to keep the price down as much as we could, because I know that that's what people consider.
Oh, absolutely. Price is
Yeah,
big for middle
it's
class
very
to lower
price
class.
sensitive for younger people. A lot of them are just getting started. They have young kids, so we made it in yellow. You know.
Yeah, no, it looked very cool in yellow, actually.
Yeah, it did.
I have one more question. Sorry, I know I told you it was the last one. It's real quick. So I know they made different. They made the Xterra also in Brazil, but they did it with a different front nose. Did you guys have to work with that team at all, or did you basically finish your design and send it to them and let them modify it?
No, I think that's what studios really around the world. We were the first studio outside of Japan,
Right.
and originally we were called Nissan Designer International, as you probably know. But
Yeah.
then they opened design offices in England first, and then we had a Barcelona studio. We had a small studio at an art school up in San Francisco. Anyway, we drew from as much technical support from outside as we could.
Right.
In other words, we didn't want to with this particular vehicle anyway. And by my inclination, any car should not be overly difficult to get in and to use.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like the cars at the airport. You can get in them pretty much and use them. You know?
Right.
But I've got a Porsche out in my garage that's just, the book on it is about 3/4 inch thick.
Right.
And I'm not going to get that out, as long as it runs. And I do the maintenance, or have the maintenance done on it yearly. I'll have to just do the best I can. And a lot of cars are like that. We had an engineer, because we had engineers in the studio that were advocates for design. And one guy got into the new 7 Series BMW and with that iDrive or whatever it was, and couldn't change the radio. He couldn't do anything with it. He couldn't make it work. So that's it. That's almost a car you have to take lessons. I mean, we're getting into Learjet shit here. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I always said I didn't want to own a car that was smarter than I am, and the BMWs kind of got that way.
Yeah, exactly. Push the button twice.
Right.
Well, come on. It's not intuitive,
Exactly.
Now,
well, it's too hard to drive and to, like you said, even change the radio station, right? Like you have to, like, especially in an iDrive situation, you have to look down to see what you're doing instead of just there's a knob there. I just want to turn the knob. I want to turn the volume up, turn it down, whatever. I don't want to fiddle with everything.
No, and even stereo equipment, I find there was a time in the 70s, what's that Swedish Bang & Olufsen. Bang & Olufsen had a sliding. You put your finger on this thing and slide it up for the sound.
Okay.
But by the time you took your finger away, it was either too loud or too too quiet. And a knob works perfectly. I mean,
Right.
there's nothing like a toggle switch or a knob. These kinds of things are, and they're, you know, they're practical. I think people appreciate it, but I don't know. I know I do.
Yeah,
I have a
absolutely.
truck out here that's just bulletproof, you know.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I love my truck. It has a touch screen on it, but it also has the knobs. Like it has a
Yeah.
GPS, and I like having the GPS for trips and stuff like that. But I don't need it to hook up to Twitter or anything like that. I just need it. I need the truck to turn on when I turn the key and get me where I need to go.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I completely agree.
Well, Tom,
And a lot of times,
I was
go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I really appreciate you doing this. You actually had so my dream growing up was to be a car designer, so you got to live my dream, and I just get to podcast about it now, which is its own kind of exciting.
No,
I guess.
I actually was encouraged. Medford's a pretty small town,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a really good art teacher who was not against using your art as a way to make a living.
Right.
So he had a little brochure on Art Center that he gave me. I sent stuff in from high school, my art class in high school, and accepted me. And so I started the same year I graduated from high school. And I was 18. It was back in 62. But then in 63, I took a year off to build a model car for the Fisher Body model competition.
Okay.
The Fisher Body Craftsman's Skill is what it's called. And it was quite popular in the day for high school students and that kind of thing. So I wanted to win it because I needed money. I wasn't making any money in the orchards here in Oregon during the summer and the lumber mills that I worked in.
Mm-hmm.
Even though at the time LA was a cheap place to live. You know, you get an apartment for $50.
Not now.
And, yeah,
Definitely
not
not now.
anymore. But you know, I just couldn't make enough. So I built this little model car, and lo and behold, it won First National, and I got a prize of $5,000 to use
Wow.
toward my education. And so that plus a Ford scholarship kind of got me through. I'm not sure I told the Ford people that I already had that $5,000. Anyway,
So you ended
I
up
got
working
a
at
free
GM
ride.
right after, right?
Well, I did. There was no obligation.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know? There really was, and I think they were dispensed by the school, but the money was given, I'm guessing, directly to the school, and the school made the choices.
Okay.
But,
That makes sense
yeah.
then. Okay. Like I can't imagine
Yeah.
being Ford and here's this money, and you're just like, okay, bye. I'm gonna go work for GM now.
No, I felt a little bad about it, but I always wanted to work for GM when I got to school. But when I got to school, I've always been interested in cars, but more hot rods.
Mm-hmm.
I had a couple of hot rods in high school and after.
Right.
But I found out that I'm not much of a mechanic.
Yeah. I'm finding that out too.
Yeah, I don't like rust in my eyes, and I don't like my fingers banged up as much as
Right.
that happened. You know. So
Did you
anyway.
have a designer that you kind of looked up to? Like I don't. DeLorean was probably the most famous back then, right? Like of his own accord.
Well, he wasn't a designer. He didn't do any design work.
Okay, I thought he did. Okay.
No. In fact, I'm having a problem actually with my brother-in-law, who thinks that Carroll Shelby designed this really quite beautiful. I think they made 50 cars or something. It's a really kind of a pretty car. The interior is terrible, but the exterior is kind of nice. I forget what they call it, but he insists that that Carroll Shelby designed it himself. And I said, no, the surfaces are too professionally done. There's no way.
Right. He
that
usually
this wasn't
took
done
an
by a
engine and put it
designer.
in something. or hopped up an engine.
Yeah, and that was very successful for him, you know. But he had help with that. He had help with the
Oh, of course, yeah.
engineering side, the design side. I met the man. He's a very very what do you call? He's approachable. He's easy to talk to. He's just a nice guy, or was.
Right.
And he was able to put deals together and try things. He was an old entrepreneur, you know.
Mhm.
And DeLorean the same way. I mean, he got in trouble,
Yeah.
of course, but
Up until that point, yeah.
you know, I admired him because he was taking chances. He
No,
really
absolutely.
did the first. Yeah, you know, with that. It was a GTO. Anyway, it was called the Judge, you know.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
had what we called a hypalon front end. I think it was 5 separate pieces. I'm sure it's a collector's item now if you find one complete. But it was really something in its day. That car was a beautiful car.
Yes.
And I look back on some of the cars, and of course I like the Bullet.
The Mustang, yeah.
Mustang, yeah. I have a friend though who knows about that movie, and he said that those were all Formula One noises.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Dodge and the Dodge Charger and that little fastback 68 or whatever it was. It's just so cool.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That kind of thing, you know. I tried product design as a major for a while, and then I transferred over immediately to what they call transportation design, which I thought would include all forms of transportation, but really focused on the car.
Mm-hmm.
Because those were the jobs that were open at the time. There wasn't really much in Europe that was available to us.
Right.
So it was mostly Detroit for us, and it was a good experience. I raised my kids there, and it was a good place to live. I liked it.
That's great. I went to school for mechanical engineering thinking that would get me into car design, but it didn't. Which is fine.
No, it's really it's really the portfolio that gets you in.
Right. And like I have drawings still that I did as a kid, like laying around, but I used AutoCAD a lot, and it's really hard, I think, to get a good design in on AutoCAD. Like you can get good side views and stuff like that, but to get, you know, all the textures and stuff like that is really hard to do.
Yeah, it's really difficult too if you don't have a good teacher, and you know, and if you're not involved with really good students as well, because you're in competition with each other.
Right.
You know, to blow the guy off the wall, you know, with what you put up. So you learn a lot, and drawing a car is not easy. I was sent back to what is it? It was back. It's an adjunct to Brown University. Oh, jeez, I can't think of the name of it anyway. But it's a famous design school.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that they were trying to do is teach automotive design, but they were trying to do it in such a theoretical way that the students weren't ending up with any portfolios. And that's the only thing we care about, is what he's got in his portfolio.
Right.
Can he draw a car, which is very difficult to draw, really.
Yes.
And can he define a form? This is what was important to me. You know, can he do a rendering that defines a form? And I was back there, and I was there for a week. And the first thing I did was take all their markers away and make them draw with section lines, so they kind of knew what a car looked like going from a rear three-quarter view or a front three-quarter view. If you draw those section lines in perspective, first you have to learn perspective, and then you know how to put together a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, because a lot of times you think, well, I should be able to see the other side of that. But really, you can't, because the cars today are sloped back, from the grill quite a bit. You can't even see the other side. Well, I was trying to draw cars like that I was modeling at our center, and had a hell of a time with it. So it's not the easiest thing in the world to draw. And these guys at this school, a lot of them were in advanced studies like master classes and things like that. Their parents have spent a fortune. And they had cars in there that had like 2 stories in them. A 2-story car. I said, well, this won't work.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's a bus.
It's a double-decker bus. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's real wide. It's interesting to talk design.
No, it is. If there's any other vehicles you were involved with that you ever want to talk about again, I'm happy to have you on. Is there a maker right now that you think is doing a really good job, in particular, of designing vehicles?
I think. I still think, to me, the Germans are doing a good job. I really like the way BMW kind of broke out of the staid look that they had back in the 80s. That was Chris Bengo was running the show at the time. And he came out with a new 7 Series, which people were upset about.
Right, it had what they call it, the flame design or something on the sides. I forgot. It had a design language name to it, and I can't remember what it was, but I do remember it was very contoured, and people really didn't like that, the way it was contoured, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure why they didn't like it. In the press, I stood up for it. I mean, that was. I thought they needed to move on.
Right. No, I agree. They had gotten stale. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they're stale again. I don't think they're making the right moves. But I'll tell you somebody that is, and I haven't been out looking at the new cars and stuff. This is a small town. We don't have, a lot of the high-end dealerships, but the Mercedes, I don't know the numbers. They got numbers for everything. But anyway, a lot of the Mercedes, I think, are, their direction, their surfacing, the detailing, the, quality, and the perceived quality.
Right.
When you walk up to it, it looks like an expensive car. There's other cars that just don't do that are affordable. I mean, you can, I could probably buy one now if I wanted to, and I don't need to. So,
right.
But if I did, and also the Jaguar, that new little sports car is so cool because it harkens back to.
Was it the F-Type?
The cars from the 60s, huh?
The F-Type? I think it's the F-Type. Is that what you're talking about, the little 2-door?
Yeah, right. That's right. And I would love to have one of those. But anyway, I think it's beautiful, and I think the big sedan, again, I don't know what it's called, with that long upright, it's a real saloon. It's just so gorgeous. And the head designer of that is a Scottish person, as my ancestry is too. We're very, very proud of that. So, I like Jaguars. I forget his name. Really super nice guy, and a hell of a designer, I think.
Is it Ian Callum?
Because they're, pardon me? Yeah, Ian McCallum.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyway, he's a really nice guy, and he knows how to direct them in a way that's subtle but beautiful. I mean,
yeah. No, the Jaguars are gorgeous cars. I completely agree.
Yeah,
the BMWs to
and
me, like
you
they
just want to wash them.
right. Yes. Oh, yeah. There's nothing better than hand washing a car with nice curves on it. I could. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
the new
yeah. That's one reason
BMWs.
I like this Porsche. But
Right. Yeah. Oh, the Porsche. Yeah. All the a Porsche, I think, would be. It's not my dream car necessarily, but it's definitely up there.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
but the BMWs, I feel like I don't know if there's a war going on amongst some manufacturers to get the grills bigger and bigger and bigger, but BMW
Oh
really laid
my,
into it now.
yeah. I
And
know.
the new
I'm not sure either. When I look at the Genesis too, I see really, with the body side and everything, it looks really good. They've got a designer that designed a car completely on the tube, and no modelers involved at all. It was all milled directly off of his work on the computer,
right.
and it's one of the most beautiful cars. You probably have seen it. It's just a slippery looking. It's very low. I love low cars. That's why I love that. When they came out with what a lot of people termed the banana car, and again I can't remember the name of it, but it was some years ago when Mercedes came out with this beautiful car with this beautiful line on the belt that came off of the fender, and it just kept dropping a bit, and it was balanced beautifully. I loved that car. In fact, I'd search one out and probably get one of those if I could. Okay.
Thank you again for doing this. We will definitely talk again in the future because this was a blast. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks again for listening to the Auto Riff. Did you know that for the low, low price of nothing a day, you can share this show with your friends and help the show grow? That's right. It'll cost you nothing. That's so much cheaper than any amount of money. Help the show out by liking and subscribing on YouTube and leaving a review for the podcast. Thank you again, and keep the rubber side down.